We're going to be continuing our chat now with Mark Hibbs, Managing Director and Portfolio Manager at Gen 2 Partners. Now, Shri, just outlining the latest from the Fed minutes.
Sure.
Not so sure about their commitment to stimulus. Now, of course, we've been talking for the last couple of weeks about this fiscal cliff.
Sure.
And the potential impact that it has on the U.S. economy. Where do you see it now?
Oh, the fiscal cliff, I mean, we kind of viewed it as probably being one of those last minute they'll do a deal, so we kind of viewed it pretty much as likely to be noise, which is exactly what happened ultimately. In terms of what they've agreed, we're looking at a fiscal drag of about 1.5%, most of it loaded over the first half of next year, or this year rather. Obviously there's more uncertainty coming up in just a couple of weeks. Is that, you know, we have another battle, as it were, political battle over whether or not to raise the debt ceiling and or not. But going back to the Fed, one thing that you don't seem to be talking about is the US potentially is going to grow quite well this year. And I think in the minds of some of the people on the Fed board, they may be looking to that to say, well, do we need quite as much stimulus as we have in the past? Certainly from our perspective, looking at, as Sri said, other central banks are still very much in the competitive game as regards QE. Whether or not that will strengthen the dollar and obviously impact US exporters is obviously one point. From our perspective, looking at Japan specifically, we think that's probably going to be very, very helpful. Because the yen is likely to weaken vis the dollar, as you might expect. So it's interesting. I mean, we think that on the second half of the year, the US could be in a self-sustaining recovery. I mean, you're seeing signs of this in the housing market already. Perhaps some of the people that are making the decisions at the Fed are seeing the same data that we are.
Yeah, Mark, it's an interesting point that you raise, and the bond market recently has got absolutely walloped. Is that telling us that growth is returning in the US economy?
We certainly believe so. I mean, we're looking beyond the kind of the noise that we're seeing, the political wrangling that we're seeing, and trying to make a decision as to where the US is likely to be kind of from July on. And we think at that point the US is a driver of the global economy, may well be back, and we're positioning ourselves accordingly.
Now, Marco, with your expectation that the U.S. economy is going to be recovering, how are you going to be making money from that?
Well, obviously we're an Asia specialist, so we'll be playing the increase in domestic demand within the U.S. And how that feeds into, say, the export sector in China, the export sector in Japan.
All right, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
My
We've
pleasure.
been speaking with Mark Hibbs from Gen 2 Partners. Time for a quick break, but with trading back on in Tokyo in a big way, we'll recap what's moving. Stay with us. We'll be back in 2.